morning and welcome to Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg and it's the 23rd day of July 2025. Welcome to our show. We're going to start out this morning with Liberty Essentials with Bill Mohr, Ralph the IT guy, and hopefully Karen will join us. We'll see where she is. And then at 10 o'clock, we're going to be talking about notices and holding public functionaries accountable with Greg Martini. And I hope that lots of his buddies are on, because I'm going to tell you what, these guys are doing such amazing work. I'm always glad to talk to all of them. So how you guys doing this morning?
I'm doing great.
Yeah, good morning.
We're absent a Karen. So we'll see. I see if I can get a hold of said Karen the Riveter here and see if she's okay. So anyhow, what are we talking about, guys? I started out this morning looking into what was being posted by Real Rob, and it is pretty shocking, all the information that's coming out right now. I mean, really shocking. Let me read this to you because I couldn't read it on my TikTok video, which I've also got to get up. The damning email obtained by King Solomon through the Freedom of Information Act, John Solomon. In a stunning exchange, CIA Director Mike Morrell turns to fellow Director John Brennan and asks if he would join in toppling the United States government during the November 3rd, 2020 election. Brennan not only agrees, but also expresses gratitude. CIA Mike Morrell says, "Can I add your name to the list? I will be adding Leon Panetta, Sue Gordon, Jeff Johnson, George, Lisa Monaco, and Mike Rogers, and working on adding Dan Coates, Mike Rogers at HPSCI, and Tom Bassaret, and others of the IC, the intelligence community, career folk, trying to give the effing vegetable, particularly during the debate on Thursday, a talking point to push back on Trump in this issue." CIA John Brennan says, "Okay, Michael, add my name to the list. Good initiative. Thanks for asking me to sign on. 2020 must be decertified." Bam. And then what I posted on that further was the connections with Iran and what's been going on. I don't know if you listened to what John Ferguson, my friend, said. He was actually at the signing of the Genius Bill with a couple other of my friends that were there, which there's more going on behind the scenes than anybody can possibly know. But John laid it out on why we went after Iran. It was having to do with dirty bombs and such. And I thank him and the other people that are able to come forward and tell the truth. The connections with Iran, this is me talking, and all these traitors is going to be shocking to most. The deep state has been running proxy countries and using the people as pawns. Obama, Jarrett, Brennan, Rice, the cast of thousands who are complicit, treason, and they appear to be guilty of egregious crimes against humanity. The suffering these people have inflicted upon innocent souls is incomprehensible. What's been going on in their little global crime syndicate across the globe here. And I'm pretty happy that it's getting brought forward, really. The John Ferguson video that he put out, I'm going to see if I can get him to come on Friday, because we need to know about the motion that they had of moving nukes around and how they were trying to do it in the United States. I posted on this months ago that the information was coming out that appeared to have some validity to it. And John added some more information to it, which I'm very thankful for. But anyhow, I wanted to talk about it because I alluded to it on my censoring TikTok videos, which are censoring me. Yesterday, it killed the sound on it. And I can say it here. I can say the word, right? And so anyhow, I did put that out there. And now I'm going to post that to the other platforms as we enter our show.
On that note, I love the word unalived because it's it's like a big joke that everybody is in on about. Yeah, you can try and censor our words, but you ain't going to censor our ideas.
James Corbett put a real good video out that Vicky brought forward on money, calling it an algocracy, being an algorithm run, basically dictatorship. So, you have a corporatocracy, we have all sorts of things, a technocracy. I can't say the word, you know what I mean. And so anyhow, we have all of these ocracies going on right now, and it's how they capture the system. So, but I digress.
Well, a lot of the men and women that were alive in the foundation of the nation in the first 50 years, there were many of them that spoke out against technology then, and they're not talking about computers and electronics, obviously, but they were actually talking about uh, the the move through industry to considerably make life easier, right? I know it's been like months since we've been on, but when we left off talking about the disputation at the time of the War of Northern Aggression, there, uh, one of the things that they had mentioned there was when the cotton gin was made up. A lot of even though that helped the South in their endeavors to uh, be more financially stable, there were a lot of men that stood up against that because they understood that to make life easier involved the laziness of the people. And you can see that happening today. How many people are willing to just get on social media and just tear somebody apart or bash them publicly on social media, but not wanting to confront them in person?
Oh, that's going on right now with a couple of people within the Republican Party down in Brandenburg, which has gotten to be kind of fun. It's like, go ahead and say whatever you want, lodge, put your lies out there and such, and it's probably not going to end well. Just saying that, because this is I had several people that called me yesterday and said they have no idea what kind of backlash is going to happen once they decide to how do I say that, engage in unlawful practices when the law is on our side. And having someone who has gotten involved as a pro se litigant, it's kind of going to be painful. And I probably am not going to let this go. I spent, a couple of hours yesterday spooking around, lurking around and spooking around. And by the magic of screenshots, documenting everything. So that should be a little frightening for what was said publicly. And they're cowards. They won't talk to me. They refuse to talk to me. They will refuse to look at the Constitution and the violations that they're egregiously trespassing upon. And so it really sucks to be them when they have people who actually know the law and have had lots of time to study it. Once again, sometimes you throw things out there. President Trump does it all the time. He's bait. Sometimes you throw things out there and you win by losing, because what you gain isn't a fake title. What you gain is the knowledge of how it works. And once you have that knowledge, it becomes a very, very troubling thing to people that are breaking the law.
Yeah, I guess as far as technology goes, like you were talking about with the cotton gin, I tend to take the tack that technology can be used for good, can be used for evil, but I don't like the dependence. I am a huge fan right now of the developments that are being made by people doing semiconductors in their garages to make microchips, because that brings the ability to make that technology to the common person, where if everything broke down, you're not reliant on those supply chains to be able to build it back up. And if you want to make your life easier with it, well, now you can build your own equipment to be able to make your life easier, and you're going to have to know how to do it, and you're going to know how to fix it.
Yeah. One thing regarding technology, and Ralph, you know this, Donnie, you probably know this. It's something that I just learned a couple years ago, and it's made my life a whole lot easier. When I'm finding information, especially information that just pops up at random, and then you go to look for it later on, they've removed it, right, to where you can't find it anymore. Just to help the people out a little bit, there is a wonderful thing. I use a Windows computer for most of my work, along with others in the background that I run. But there's a wonderful thing called a screenshot, right? When you see something that you think, oh, this needs to be remembered or saved for future use, right? Everybody needs to know that on your keyboard, you can take a screenshot, you push the Windows key and press print screen. right? Usually at the top, kind of towards the right of your keyboard. You'll take a screenshot instantly on whatever screen you're currently using. It gets saved to a folder. You can access it later, right? Another quick tool, and I'm not a technology geek, right? But this is just stuff that people need to use once in a while.
I do it all the time.
Yeah, another quick tool that I use for snipping a portion of the screen, because you may have multiple things on the screen and you only want to catch something, right? You can always edit or crop the picture later, but you can also use Windows Shift S, which is the snippet tool, and then you can select a portion of whatever screen you want and open that up and save it to whatever folder you want to save it in. So that's just a quick help for the people.
Yeah.
You got to document things.
And document it yourself. Don't rely on the Internet Archive to do all the work for you, because once again, centralization, not a good thing. We've talked about it many times. And there's other good tools too for archiving that I do tend to think people should know about. If you're on Linux, it's actually a lot easier to use some of the tools, but some of them also work on Windows. There's one for archiving videos off of platforms that you are legally allowed to archive them off, called YT-DLP. And that is a wonderful tool for archiving videos that you think might be taken down off of various platforms that like to censor things. And then if you're on Linux, you can take snapshots of entire websites using a tool that I would say most Linux distros come with this tool by default, called wget. And there's options in there that you can crawl an entire website and save it off along with all of the links in it.
Knowledge gives you the ability to uphold your rights, and also documenting it backs it up if you have to take action. So there you go. It's important. It really is. So what are we going to talk about today? I have something else. I've got this almost a whole series right now of the Biblical Blueprints series, and I think are you familiar with this, Bill?
I've seen it. I have not read it.
Well, there's a lot of books. You should see my stack of these books. Okay, like I'm a book nerd. Like I collect books, lots of them, because I believe once again that, and then I take notes on things and I throw it in there and such. But I go and I'll do used books and such, and find different things that are out there. And one of the greatest things is sometimes there is. Let me see the other one I was using the other day. I put them everywhere because then I start looking for things. But in the book that I bought on nullification, there were actually highlighted sections in it. So I'll look at what other people found interesting in there too. And I think that's really significant to highlight things and be able to say, yes, in fact, I don't know, this is something that I want to remember or bring to my attention and such. I think it's great. But this is so amazing, and it's what we talk about a lot, which is the basis of the Bible for how to run this nation. We read into Judges and Kings, and you can see the whole system is there, not the one we have right now, which is a communist system that we're working under, a captive system, but the way that actually ensures peace throughout our land, where we can live together in peace. And it all stems from being a service-minded individual, not a control-minded individual, but somebody who is committed to serving. And going back to what you said about people not necessarily jumping in the game like they should, people will almost always take the lazy way out, just like most creatures will. Let's just put it that way, because it's a conservation of energy. That's what it is. But the things that are worthwhile require work, diligence, and it's always the harder path that actually is the worthwhile path every single time.
Yeah, there's a common phrase that's used. It's decadence follows luxury.
I'm going to see if I can find that book a minute. Keep going.
That is, the decay of a nation is followed right after, as I'm talking, I'm trying to find a quote, but the decay of a nation is followed right after the luxury of the nation, because just like 150, 200 years ago, um, they saw that luxury usually ends up in a form of laziness or complacency with what's going on around them. And that will typically fall into decay. You can read about that in the scriptures as well. You know, when the nations get puffed up and they have everything they need and they have great wealth, it's warned of them, don't forget the God that put you here. Because once you do, David says in the Psalms too, a nation that forgets the Lord will be turned into hell. Right? We're dangerously close to that here in America. People are just willingly complacent on certain things, especially when you get a Republican administration, right? They get really complacent on it, and they allow things to happen, lawless events to happen, where had the other party been in power at the time or been an authority at the time, they would never have allowed that to happen. They would have stood against it, right? These digital IDs, digital currencies. What else? I talked about the tracking systems, the control over AI and the federal government, all of that stuff. The conservatives of the day were preaching out against that during Obama, during Biden, but then they lax a little bit once you get a different administration in office that they want it. Now they lax off and say, well, you know, we just have to deal with some of this because we have all this other good stuff going.
Well, and not only that, I can't go against the party. I
Yeah.
can't go against the group. Even if the group does something wrong, they will not go and defend someone that this group has been creating an offense to.
Yeah,
No.
that's a double standard, right? We're warned of that. A double-minded man is unstable in all his ways. When you see people like that, you'll realize that other aspects of their life, they also hold double standards to. You know, laws for thee and not for me kind of aspect, right? Everybody knows me. I'll hold to the law. Whatever a true law is, I'll hold to it. I will not hold to any pretended legislation where they don't have the authority to do it, which is the majority of what they're doing.
Exactly.
Everyone in any sort of political capacity that holds any amount of say as to what our laws are passing lawless legislation on a daily basis. And it's absolutely incredible to see that. And it's more incredible to see that the people don't stand up against it because, well, their guy or their person or their lady or whoever it is sitting there doing it. You know, we can't stand against them because they're one of us. Well, I got to tell you, we're warned that voting for the lesser of two evils is still voting for evil, right? Supporting the lesser of two evils is still supporting evil. I don't care on how much of a form you get, it's evil. And I can tell you for a fact, if you were to put me in an office anywhere and I did something, hopefully I would do it out of ignorance, right? I don't purposely go and do things that are lawless in nature. But if I do something out of ignorance and you call me out for it, it's my duty to repent and turn away from that and remedy the situation, right? I just had a conversation on social media regarding the $50 million that the federal government had just sent over to Michigan to deal with the ice storms in the UP, right? I can't tell you. You go to those posts. Who is it? Representative Cabot was one of them that I saw that reposted something from Donald Trump, who was praising this and saying, you know, we're doing a good job here, and we need to send this money over and help. And I don't think I saw anybody call that out, but that's lawless, right? You read the story of Davy Crockett. He did the same thing out of ignorance and was called out by Horatio Bunce. Okay, if you look up online, the story is actually called "It's Not Yours to Give." Right? You go through that whole story, and though they were trying to do something helpful to the people, they were making a charitable effort to help somebody. It's lawlessness because they don't have the authority to do it. And Davy Crockett made the mention that if we want to do this, he would be the first one willing to give up a week of his congressional salary. And if everybody in Congress would do that, they would make up more than what they wanted to allocate to that specific widow woman at the time that they were talking about in Congress. But he stood out against it the second time because he was called out by Horatio and was threatened to never be placed in office again because of that one little constitutional issue. Though it be good, if it's not constitutional, it's still lawless, right? It's that mindset that people have to get back into. You cannot support any amount of misdemeanors against the law with the mindset that it's for the good of the people. Because first and foremost, it has to be lawful. Second, it has to be constitutional. And then it has to be for the good of the people. There's no other order. If you look at the good of the people first and decide to throw away the Constitution, you've usurped your authority given to you by the very people that you're trying to help. Namely, things like that are supposed to be done by the community, by the people, by the church, respectively. Those situations should be handled at that level. The federal government should stay out of it, right? Another instance of that, and I didn't want to talk about this at all, but another instance of that, we'll go back to the COVID relief money. Okay, how many people were praising the government for sending out COVID relief funds when it was the governments that were locking them down, that were keeping them out of their business, that were preventing them from work, that were keeping them from travel, and then they praise the government for sending them a little pittance pay. Well, wait a minute, that's still lawless, right? But yet the majority of people cashed those checks and used it for their benefit. I can tell you something, the government owes me a little bit for stealing my income for so long that I took that money, cashed it, and I used it to fight against them. I didn't make a penny off it, right? And some people, they even call that out. And I'm okay with that because I did take money from the federal government. But like I said, I used it against them. I used it for none of my benefit, right? So it's that mindset we have to constantly address. William Penn said something when he was talking about the private life of a specific candidate at the time. He said, governments like clocks go from the motion men give them, right? The Declaration of Independence makes that clear that we are governed by the consent of the governed. Okay, it's the same principle there. And as governments are made and moved by men, so by them they are ruined too. Wherefore, governments rather depend upon men than men upon governments. Let men be good, and the government cannot be bad. But if men be bad, let the government be never good. They will endeavor to warp and soil it to their turn. I know some say, let us have good laws, and no matter for the men that execute them. That is, if you have good laws, it does not matter who is in office. But let them consider that though good laws do well, good men do better. For good laws may want or lack good men and be abolished or invaded by ill men. You can see that happening all day long. But good men will never lack good laws, nor suffer ill ones.
Well, and this is a great thing to talk about ordinances. Somebody brought up ordinances when the township thing was coming up, and there's ordinances. And I'm like, it does not matter because ordinances are not law if they conflict with the Constitution or they take away rights. They cannot conflict. They can create ordinances but it cannot infringe on any of your rights. They're there to protect them. So they're null and void. And just another thing, just so that everybody knows, if you don't understand nullification, you need to, because if the candidates are not talking about nullification, they need to be gone. Okay? Because all they're going to do is continue to add more theft by legislation and destruction of your rights, centralization, collectivism, and such. It has to go to nullification. So please continue. That's kind of related here.
I just wanted to bring something up that it's rather awesome that even though we have kind of meandering conversations sometimes, that you have enough books within your reach that you can just pick them up and show them on screen.
You should like, well, you know my piles of books. I have so many books that are within arm's reach here. It's probably crazy.
I still have about 8 boxes of books that I still have yet to go through. When I redid my office down here, I have an entire bookshelf. I can see it, but I can't reach it. But I have an entire bookshelf that's just flooded with unorganized books right now because I have a horrible time trying to organize books. Every time I think I'm going to set it up here by title, and then no, I need to put these 2 authors together and by subject. Yeah, and it gets to be a mess. So I got like 8 boxes of books sitting there I haven't even gone through yet. But yeah, books are important. And yes, you can't control F to find a certain phrase or word that you're looking for, but books cannot be altered once they're in your possession, right? Those details remain there forever. And if you find they're altered later on in publishing, you can find that and you can call that out and you can make it known, right? We all know that our history books are rewritten in the educational sector, the indoctrinational sector, every about 5 years. Well, why do they have to rewrite history books? Why don't we just know our history and learn from it so that we don't repeat it? They have to change it so that the American people forget it, don't know it, and through a period of generational time span, they're able to indoctrinate the kids to believe something completely different that their parents were taught.
Well, I would like to say that it isn't even more nefarious, but it's more nefarious than that, because when you looked at Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell and her dad, Robert Maxwell left Czechoslovakia and moved over to Britain and somehow acquired, as a somewhat of a refugee, $1.2 billion to buy the publishing companies that are there. And then he went on, and after he started buying them, it started Pergamon Press, and you can translate that name to Satan, basically. And they are the ones that, including Scholastic and such, that started printing after he moved over and started taking over the publishers. Guess who publishes all of our textbooks? And that would be that whole group of clowns who, oh, surprise, surprise, we're involved in the Balfour Declaration, and we know what happened after that without even saying a word. So we have a problem. And the problem isn't with the people of the countries. Like the Iranians, the people are just pawns. The people of the United States, a lot of times, are pawns. A lot of the people who were being trafficked across the southern border were pawns. The children were pawns. They don't care about people. People in the Jewish people, they're being used as pawns, and same thing with the Chinese people. It's the governments that have overlaid these people, all the people of the world, and tried to enslave the entire world. This is why it's so important as Americans to fight, because I think we kind of are the last stand right now to have the ability to not just have ourselves, marched off to like sheep to be slaughtered, quite honestly.
And if you don't think that they're altering books, take a look at some of the documented instances where they've gotten caught publishing new editions of books without acknowledging that they changed things. These are new editions of existing books, such as, for example, the James Bond books. And they've tried tinkering with the Chronicles of Narnia books as well. That one got called out well enough that I think at this point that one has mostly been reversed, but I can't say I know for sure on that. So
I have
there's
3 copies pre-70s that I was able to buy in the used bookstore, because I'm like, nope, they're not going to erase this. This literature is incredibly valuable for teaching children.
Yeah, so there's plenty of documented instances of this where they've published it as the same book, and it's clearly not the same book, and much less saying that, oh, this is a 4th edition, we have updated it from a 3rd edition of this textbook or this history book or whatever.
Greg's backstage, so I'm going to say it right now. It's like the Maxims of Law, as well as Black's Law Dictionary and such, which I actually owned both of those before I met Greg. I think I bought them about the same time that Matt Truella, I became acquainted with him, and the Doctrine of the Lesser Magistrate. And so to go back to those founding books and documents, we really need to focus our attention on that. Go to used bookstores and ponder what's there. And if there's dust on it and the cover is a little tattered, you probably have a good book. But the victors write the history, so there's always more to the story.
And you can't take old documents, read them, and define them with new dictionaries, right? That's why Black's Law Dictionary is so important. That's been revised numerous times over, but you have to keep the revisions to their appropriate timeline, right? If a law was written in this timeline, you have to use that revision to understand the interpretation of it, because you can't do it in reverse either. You can't take a modern law and define it with old text.
Okay, so Greg is a beast. Okay, Greg is a beast level researcher. You know what he did last week? He took all of the constitutions of the state of Michigan and put them in a freaking spreadsheet and compared all the revisions. I'm like, this is like some sort of boss level genius happening right here. So you could see it and compare and contrast. And I just want to say, thank you, Greg. That was fantastic. Actually, here, let's just do it. I'll just bring you on. Thank you, Greg. It was amazing. Oh, we got a problem with your sound. I got to move you backstage because the sound is crazy. So they don't want to hear what we have to say. They're messing with their sound. That's all right. He'll be on at 10 o'clock and we'll debug this.
Yeah.
Unaliving the sound again.
Yeah, they unalived our sound.
There's a quote by a prominent figure back in the later days of the Constitution. I'm not sure the date line there. But he studied at Yale University. And he said, I spent 3 years getting my law degree at Yale Law School. From the moment I enrolled, I was assigned huge leather-bound editions of legal cases to study and discuss. I read what lawyers and judges, professors and historians said about the Constitution, but never once was he assigned the task of reading the Constitution itself. This is in Yale. Notice how I didn't give the timeline, because early Yale would have told you to read the Constitution for yourself. Later Yale said, yeah, take our word for it. He says, over the last decade, however, I've become a student of the Constitution, searching each line for its meaning and intent. It is amazing how much more you will learn when you quit studying about it and pick it up to read it for yourself.
Same thing with the Bible. Pick up the Bible and start reading it. And the older the version, the better off you are.
Yeah. You talk about books, publishing, the rewriting of history, the rewriting of laws and such like that. There's one thing that I point out commonly as well. A lot of people had in their possession back in the mid-90s a Zondervan edition of the Bible, right? Zondervan is a huge publishing company, and they publish all sorts of stuff, right? And they hold the protections to reproduce specifically their King James Bible with Zondervan. But how many people know of the publishing company called HarperCollins? Right? HarperCollins owns the publishing rights to, I almost said Levin. It's LaVey's Satanic Bible. Right? They hold the rights to that. Now, HarperCollins and Zondervan merged. They became one.
Of course they did.
Right? So it's important to understand how these things work. They will always have a division, and it's somewhere along the line they will come together and find a common ground, and then everybody's okay with it because we still have this and that. Well, you're reading something that's being published by the same people who publish the exact opposite of what you're reading. Okay? There's a huge conflict here, and if you don't catch it, you're liable to just remain in an ignorant state where we don't need to address this issue. Thomas Jefferson said very clearly, a nation that wishes to be ignorant and free wishes for what never was nor ever will be, right? You can't have one without the other. You have to have knowledge to your freedom. Read Hosea 4:6. is because of the lack of that the people are destroyed. So that should be of utmost concern. And we speak about education all the time too, right? Get your kids out of public school. Start training them from home. It's your duty to do so. Quit giving them to the state to indoctrinate, right? Find ways to do it. I understand not everybody comes from the same line. Not everybody's been dealt the same cards. But there are ways, and there are other people who are willing to help you. Right? That's been proven time and time again. If you can't find somebody, be that somebody. People will come alongside. If they see an easy way to get involved, they're probably going to get involved. But if you're going to put the work on somebody else to get going and then seek to join in later, you may never have that one person that's going to step up and do it. So be one person that actually does something with the information that you're given, and not just take it in and absorb it and look to it and say, hey, I learned something today. I'm all for the better. Well, some point you're going to die. I hate to admit it, but you are. And if you don't give that information and pass it out, that information dies with you.
True story.
Yeah.
I really liked homeschooling. I thought it was a phenomenal time. And you know what the best part about it is, as a homeschool mom, when my kids were younger, was the fact that as an adult, to see the material again, it took on a whole new meaning. And so when you read things and you learn things as a child, you have a basis, but it's going to come back to you when you're older. And if you continue to refresh and renew the knowledge you have, all of a sudden, the deeper meanings that are behind it become way more significant than it did when you were a child. And, of course, I was a product of public school, which, put me in the less than average category, I would say. And so when you do that, you have to, I got good grades and such. That wasn't it. I'm just saying the whole system is dumbed down and didn't do a service to any of us. So once you got past that, you had to either start asking questions when things didn't make sense to you and start your own education process in order to learn what was really going on. And I think all of us right now are kind of in that category. As adults, we have to go back and restudy what we missed. Oh, and just guess what happened? Hey, Karen, you were muchly missed. Are you okay?
Yeah, I'm okay.
Good.
I was outside without my phone, taking care of things.
Okay, no worries. I was about ready to jump in the truck and head up to where you are and see if you were laying in a ditch somewhere or something.
Well, you're still welcome to come up here.
Yeah,
I'll get you some maple twists.
You were thinking the same thing I was. We needed to make a maple twist run to the Amish store. So anyhow, let's continue on here, Bill.
One more thing, and me and quotes, right? I've got books and pages and spreadsheets and all sorts of PowerPoints, just quotes. I love quotes. George Washington said something else very profound. Back in the early days, the founders believed that the citizens understood their responsibilities to the point where they would never neglect their duties to maintain the republic, right? Franklin was one of those that everybody should know, and he told a woman that they've given a republic if you can keep it, right? They understood there was a duty of mankind to keep what was given to them. You can find that in the scriptures as well, where when the people of God were brought into the land, here are the duties they have to keep it, right? And not forget who gave it to them. But George Washington said, no country upon earth ever had it more in its power to attain these blessings than United America. Wondrously strange then, and much to be regretted indeed would be if we were to neglect the means and to depart from the road which Providence has pointed us to so plainly. I cannot believe it will ever come to pass. Well, here we are 250 plus years later, and we have previous generations who have neglected their duties, and now we're in the situation that we're in, right? In God's providence, in God's providence, you can see how he has brought more people to the knowledge of the founding era and the founding documents. You can see that coming up plain as day. There are more and more people that are standing up and starting to say things and people are slowly being corrected. And I hope that someday in my lifetime, I'll be able to see that all of this come together and the restoration of this nation happen. Because everybody knows me, I don't seek to abolish government. I'm not an anarchist. I believe that even if it's a more localized government, there needs to be the people of the country willing to uphold justice, right? That's pretty much the sole purpose in government, is to uphold justice, because it's that guards our liberty. And the people have delegated duties within the Constitution as to how that justice is supposed to be upheld, how it's to be promoted, what they're allowed to do in the promotion of it. It's pretty simple. John Dickinson also said, he said, let us take care of our rights, and we therein take care of our prosperity. Slavery is ever preceded by sleep. We saw that happen 2019, 2020, during all of the lockdowns when they were trying to enforce their draconian procedures and laws against the American people. That woke a lot of people up. Not as much as I would have thought, but it woke a lot of people up. And now, we're 4 or 5 years beyond that now, and you can see how many more people have come up out of their slumber and have awakened to the fact that there was something wrong there, and now are starting to become more knowledgeable on all of this. Samuel Adams,
the satanic spell that was going on.
Yep. Samuel Adams had said a state of indolence or laziness, inattention, and security is forever the forerunner of slavery. Right? Now, I think I mentioned this in a show previous too, but we all understand that slavery had been abolished long before the War of Northern Aggression, right? Before the Emancipation Proclamation, before it was ever endowed in our laws and statutes. Slavery had already been abolished all the way back to 1808, right? It was forbidden within the states. So how is it that we've gotten to the point now where slavery is forbidden between individuals? However, slavery is upheld by the state institution.
Bam, right there.
Right?
Well,
it's not that we abolished it in its entirety, and it's not that we don't promote it. It's the fact that the state promotes it to its benefit, and the people are kept from being able to receive justice in that manner. Because I still hold to the fact that retribution is necessary, and you can abolish the jail system. You can abolish the prison system. Jails are still necessary to hold people when an indictment is made until they're tried. But the prison system can be abolished for the most part if you uphold justice and hold restitution. Restitution may even include a form of what people would call slavery, basically indentured servitude to pay for a debt. Right? I'll still hold to that. But the fact that we give that authority only to the states is absolutely ridiculous.
Well, and it's a money grab. I mean, there's no reason that they should receive a benefit in any way, shape, or form because it's an industry. So they've turned it into another money grab by the state.
Well, and you're absolutely right. And you look at even biblically, I'll go back a couple of topics here, but one of them is I tend to equate jails as opposed to prisons, but jails are kind of the modern equivalent of the sanctuary cities in the Bible. It was a place to hold someone who had been accused of a crime safe before they could be properly prosecuted by effectively a jury of their peers. But going back further than that, to your point about the government basically being the slaveholders of all of us now, if you look at the if you look at the Israelites when they were in slavery in Egypt and what they escaped from there and the entire story of Exodus, and then you start looking at what the concept of slavery was at the time, if I remember correctly, it was effectively they had imposed forced work, but then took a tax on that, and then people were allowed to receive the greater portion of their wages. And if I remember correctly, I believe the percentage that they took as a tax on their income was something like 20%. And that was considered slavery.
Oh, Egypt sounds pretty good compared to the American standard, huh?
Yep, a little different.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, we're about 85%, and that doesn't include the inflation rate. Have you done any comparisons, price comparisons? I have. It's like shocking. It is shocking how much inflation that they're not reporting that's actually going on.
Yeah, and it's not so much that the inflation is causing the money to collapse, because gold still retains its value. Actually, it's a little bit on the low side compared to silver right now, when you look at the ratio between gold and silver.
Well, technically, the gold standard was actually the silver standard and was based on the comparative value difference between gold and silver, was it not?
Yeah, and that ratio has gone down actually quite a bit over the last probably 50 years or so. And I would expect that at some point, especially if the dollar system collapses, that ratio is going to dramatically jump, and you're going to either see a drop in silver or you're going to see a raise in gold to make up the difference. But yeah, it's not the fact that we're losing our value in a dollar, or that it's not the fact that we're losing our value in currency. It's in the fact that they're manipulating the value of their fiat currency, because real currency still holds a very similar value to what it did back in the late 1700s, early 1800s. I was taught as a child, and I believe this to be true. I can't really go back and see anything because I don't have any documentation on it. But I was taught as a child that a $20 gold piece, which was common currency back then, a $20 gold piece would buy you a very nice suit, right? That was the standard that I was taught. And if you took that same weight in gold of a $20 gold piece and brought it into today's standard, a $20 gold piece still buys you a very nice suit. Really, no more, no less. So it's not that our currency has deflated or inflated. It's that this fiat money is just being manipulated to give the impression of that, right? If we go back to regular barter and trading, as much as we can, this system will have no choice but to go away or be forced into a digital system upon us, in which case I'll stand against it in its entirety, and I'll go back, move into the woods, and go live off the land and be my own person again, because they'll kick us right out of society, which, doesn't sound half bad right now.
Yeah, I can live like our little Robin Hood camps in the woods somewhere.
Yeah, as long as we're here, we're going to do everything we can to put a stop to what we see coming. John Witherspoon, here's another quote, right? I got this book from David Barton right in front of me that I've been reading. And John Witherspoon said this as well. He said, "Shall we establish nothing good because we know it cannot be eternal? Shall we live without government because every constitution has its old age and its period? Because we know that we shall die, shall we take no pains to preserve or lengthen our life? Far from it, sir. It only requires the more watchful attention to settle government upon the best principles and in the wisest manner, that it may last as long as the nature of things will admit." So it's not that we just stand back and do nothing because the times are so bad and so evil that all of this is going to come upon us and somebody's going to come rescue us, right? It's the fact that we're here now. We've been placed here for a time, and we have a specific duty while we're here to do it. So let's redeem the time, because we already know the days are evil. Let's redeem the time so that our posterity will not have to live in the same situation that we currently live in. I was going through Esther. I rarely ever read the book of Esther, right? It's one of those books that there's a lot of information there, but I don't know, it doesn't intrigue me as much. But I was reading through the book of Esther this last week, and it popped out to me again when the declaration was made by the king. And I'm trying to find this as I'm talking. when the declaration was made by the king that from Haman that they were going to go after the Jews and persecute them and get rid of them, right? Mordecai had gone, yeah, that right there. Mordecai had gone up to Esther and said, hey, you now are sitting in front of the king, right? You have the option to go in front of the king and plead for the life of your people. And I forget which chapter now. I'm trying to find that. Give me a minute.
No worries. I'm gonna interject something here because we have a resident IT expert who said, interesting, when the stream freezes it up, it's because of errors related to the streaming service sending reporting and statistics to a third-party company called Sentry.io. So that means they're spying. Go ahead, spy away. You know, we've got a million ways to continue to come up and continue to have you play whack-a-mole on us.
Yeah, you remember reading in the Bill of Rights, right? The article that states that no soldier shall be quartered in your personal house in a time of peace, right? Yeah, exactly. We all on this screen come from a generation where we rejected wiretapping, right? We rejected it when it happened from the state government. We rejected it when it happened from the federal government. Without a proper warrant, you cannot spy on an individual to collect information from them. And then one generation later, what do we have? People willingly put Alexa into their home.
But you've got Five Eyes that are out there that went from 5 countries to something like 37 countries now. Third-party dealers. So this is funny. Ralph just said that as soon as I said, let's try it again, Sentry.io, it froze.
Yeah, it didn't freeze up that time, but it froze up the last time you said it.
Well, let's say it again. Sentry.io, Sentry.io. Go ahead, spy away, you hacks.
Yeah. People are just willingly allowing it to happen through the means of technology, right? Through the means of luxury. They're willingly allowed to put that right away. And yeah, we can let the government spy on us because this makes our life a little easier. It's out of sheer convenience, right? So I found a spot I was talking about in Esther. We all know when David fought Goliath, he went to the armies of Israel and he said, is there not a cause, right? They were trying to accuse him of coming in and just spying and seeing how the armies were doing, and his pride. But he says, is there not a cause? Is there no one willing to stand up and tackle this guy? Right? We use that often when we deal with political problems that we have to face. Is there not a cause that we get involved here? Well, as I was going through Esther again last week in chapter 4, where Mordecai and Esther have this communication back and forth through messenger, Mordecai had warned Esther. He said, think not with thyself that thou shalt escape in the king's house more than all the Jews. He says, just because you're in a prominent position, don't think for a minute that they're not going to find out about you and remove you and take you out as well, right? He said, for if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, then shall their enlargement and deliverance arise to the Jews from another place. It means if you're not going to do it, the Lord's going to do it somewhere else. You're going to miss out on that blessing and glory. But thou and thy father's house shall be destroyed. And who knoweth whether thou art come to the kingdom for such a time as this? We use that quote often, right? For such a time as this, we're here. And Esther, I can just imagine Esther sitting in the king's house, knowing full well that if she walks into the king's presence, she doesn't hold out the scepter, that she's going to be put to death immediately, right? Because that was the law of the land at the time. You show up at the king, and if he doesn't accept you, you're being put to death. So she's probably reckoning all this in her head, trying to figure out how in the world this is going to happen, and finally comes to the conclusion and sends it back to Mordecai and says, go gather all the Jews that are together in Shushan and fast for me, and neither eat nor drink 3 days, day or night. I also and my maidens will fast likewise, right? Seeking the help of divine providence, seeking the Lord's will in the matter.
Amen.
She said, and so will I go unto the king. She already knows that she may be put to death for it. So I will go in unto the king. I will do what I have to do, which is not according to the law, pretended legislation. They understood this then. which is not according to the law. And if I perish, I perish. So be it. If they want to take us out, take us out. You do us a favor. All right. But just as Paul said, we're here for your benefit. We're here speaking out against these things for your benefit. Right? I don't seek to remain on this earth. I don't seek this life. I loathe everything I have to do when I get up just to be able to survive at this point. But we're here for a purpose, and everybody has to find that purpose and be able to tackle it and do it to the best of the ability. Right? In the founding era, they said duty is ours. The results are God's. Simple as that. Leave it to him for the results, but do everything you can in this lifetime because your posterity looks to you to do that what you're called to do for their benefit.
And keep walking. When the road gets rough, just refuse to fail. Just keep walking. Don't let it knock you down. Find something that that is honorable about the situation. And if you're not being attacked, you're probably not doing anything worthwhile. It's easy to play all the time. Nobody gets mad at people who are playing full time. What they get mad at is for somebody who pushes back against the current flow, which isn't always good. And that's when you're going to get attacked.
I want to throw in there though that right there, a lot of people have learned to recognize. But on the other hand, that concept has been used against us. For example, Ryan Kelly. Well, Ryan Kelly got attacked, and therefore he must be the good guy. So we have to be really careful about how they use those narratives both ways.
Yeah, good luck with that one. Why didn't he challenge an area where he had less votes than he had supporters? That should be the first question that's asked right there. And who are these people really? Stranger danger. Yeah. Just saying.
We all admit that the media lies, the media cheats, and the media twists the narrative to fit whatever agenda they want, right? We can all agree on that. The poll was 86% of the people in America don't believe what the media has to say. So why is it that when we find somebody that's attacked and promoted through this attack across the mainstream media, why do we stand with them? Is the media not spinning that narrative to fit their agenda, their divisive agenda to keep political parties in power? Think about it. Just because somebody's being attacked, if they're making it across mainstream media, you might want to
got a problem.
Attack.
Yeah, you got a problem. If they're in the media, it's a story to sell. If it's in some, if you have to look for it, if you have to hunt for it, and it takes you a little while and it's not right there, pretty much extra sure it's because they're being suppressed by everybody else and they just continue to keep going. You know, you're absolutely right. I'll never forget that when I was running for governor, somebody reached out to Steve Bannon to have me on War Room. And, you know, and I got to tell you, both sides are controlled. It doesn't matter who they are. You know what his first reaction was? His reaction, he came back as, what is her polling numbers and how much money has she raised?
Yep, that's always the drive, isn't it?
What's that?
That's always the drive. The love of money is the root of all evil.
They're all in on it. They've made an industry out of
the thing is, you being a small candidate then in his eyes, you don't stand a chance if you don't have money. That's the way the system works. The candidate who raises the most money is more likely to bring more money into the party, and therefore the party is going to more likely put them up.
It's a quid pro quo situation the entire way through. It's pay to play. Every part of it is. Yeah. So that's just the way it is.
Let me ask you a question because I posted it the other day. I see that there's a bit of an acceleration again where the Epstein thing is small. But it's leading to this Russian thing, the Russian hoax thing. Okay, let's say we can, you know how in the old days the story was, we can't get the mobsters on the murders, but we can get them on taxes. So we'll get them on tax fraud, and at least we'll put them behind bars, and it'll be better for the people. Well, I think that's kind of what it looks like they're trying to do with some of these criminals like Obama. Well, we can't get them on being a pedophile, or like Clinton taking the skin off a little girl's face and torturing her, and etc., etc., etc. But we can get them on the Russian hoax. So let's start there. We can get them for treason, put them behind bars, and then we can open up the storylines of all these other crimes a little at a time. So if we're going to head down that road, I don't know how long it takes to see some form of justice. You've got to have a justice system that's capable of accepting that, of handling it properly, which is a challenge.
What about the people, Karen? I mean, a lot of times if you talk about the things you actually know, the immaturity of a lot of people to not be able to deal with reality is a little shocking.
Yes. So the question is, though, Trump he brings up the elections from time to time so that we all know he has not forgotten. The question is, do we see any type of election, I don't know how to put it, any clearing of the election processes before the midterms? I don't see it. I mean, it may be possible that maybe we cancel midterms because the people are just all up in arms. They say, we are not going to do this the way that you have been doing it because we know it's all fake and fraud, and we're not going to stand it anymore. Or we just go through the motions again, and we have to wait a little longer. And that's one of the questions that started to come up. I think it's a relevant question, a good one.
Well, I think when what your points are really good on that. I also think that if you're that there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes, and they're not going to telegraph their every move to a population, that there's such a huge amount of people that can't deal with this whole human trafficking, pedophilia issue, the satanic ritual abuse, and some of the other things that we all know is going on, let alone the election crimes, because it's like, oh, they're such a nice person, I'm going to vote for this person because he says what I want to hear him say, Mildred, something like that. Or that they, I can get money if I put this. What's that?
Did you just pull a Karen on Mildred? Did you just make a name out of Mildred?
I think so. I could have said, yeah. But you know what I mean? It's like, but they're such a nice person. Pass the cookies and let's get me the coffee here, guys. It's going to be a great day. There you go. But the reality is if we can't deal with even the small things, like criticizing our local officials, which aren't officials, are functionaries, of holding people accountable, how are we ever going to deal with a global crime syndicate that has had crimes, egregious crimes against humanity, without melting down into a sniveling little pile of person in the fetal position in the corner like we did during the COVID thing? Well, some of us did, but not all of us did. I was trying to get arrested, but it was one of those things that I don't know yet how much fortitude the population has to deal with it. And if they did say exactly what was going on, I mean, I can tell you what I'm seeing in the court system. Okay. I've got a bunch of cases in there, a bunch of them. And so there is one that goes back to the signature gatherers that Nessel was rigging by putting a criminal case in to try to supersede mine as a civil case, to stop the civil case, because she knew I was going to beat the living crap out of everybody when we got them into discovery. So from what I can see, and kind of already there's a lot of winning that's going on. Not sick of winning, let's just put it that way. But there are other things that are going on around the outside, and probably other cases that are being filed in the criminal proceedings that aren't necessarily out there for everybody to see, because it's an active investigation. So some of this, if we believe that the good guys are in control, which I do, I absolutely do. I think President Trump is the bait. And I think he's done some amazing things. I'm going to try to have John Ferguson in because he was talking about the nukes they were moving in behind the scenes. Greg, you want to come on? Just raise your hand and say yes because we're into your time. Okay. The nukes that they were moving in around the United States and finally kind of explaining it because it didn't make sense to me. I knew we had 2 nukes that they were moving around the United States that I was told of. And they didn't exactly know what was happening and where they were going, but they were controlled by Iran. And the Iran thing goes back to our own CIA and intelligence organizations. It's not Iran, the people. Stop it. It is our own deep state operatives that are controlling this whole freaking narrative. And so he did a stellar job of explaining it. He provides a lot of the drones to our nation. He's a good guy. I know him. Okay. Know him personally. I've sat down with him many times. Great guy. I'm going to have him try to get him on Friday because he basically said, I'm just going to tell everybody what I know is going on. So somehow he got clearance to say it at this point in time because he's got clearance. There's no 2 ways about it. So this has to be done in a proper, lawful way, but it's so much bigger than, what Millie and Agnes are saying they're over coffees and loving this candidate because they went to school with my son and such. It's a lot bigger than that. And we have to be a little patient here to watch it go down. And I do believe that God will save an entire nation for the faith of one person. It says it in the Bible. And we have to go with that he is good and faithful. If that's the case, be okay with it and trust God because he is going to either grow everybody up real quick or which could be the way he saves the nation. And that could be a rough road ahead. And that's okay. Whatever happens, God's in control.
I have another question.
Good.
So, I've used it before in some circumstances, and I've heard a lot of other people use it, and you just mentioned the concept that investigations take time. I believe in that, but also, on the other hand, I think that phrase, we have it all, I'm not sure that we know exactly what Q meant by that, but I think they have a lot of evidence on a lot of people. And I wonder sometimes whether investigations are ongoing or investigations are done. They got it all. They know it all. It's just a matter of how do you reveal it to the people versus we're just going to use that narrative to slow things down for the public. Like you said, people can't handle this stuff. So
President, hang on a second, Karen. I know you're talking on your phone. So President Trump said, we caught them all. I caught them all. So going back to that, it's not one source, and he's pretty much been right across the board. But anyhow, continue, please.
So one quick question. If they've caught them all, then why is the DOJ continuing to investigate? They should sit a grand jury. Grand juries are the investigators in our Constitution, not the DOJ, not the FBI, not the CIA, or any other 3-letter agency in America, the EPA, the FDA. They all do these investigations. No one ever gets indicted. Why? Because they're investigating. It's supposed to be the grand juries. Sit a grand jury, make it independent, and let we, the people, decide who and where people are going to get indicted for maladministration or treason.
What if they're already seated? What if there are some that are already seated and they couldn't talk about it because the investigations are going on?
What's wrong with Pam Bondi saying the grand jury's investigating it? I mean, that's who is supposed to investigate it in America, and we the people can communicate directly with the grand jury. It should be our 4th branch of government.
Agreed.
We the people should have direct access through our Constitution to a grand jury. We don't today. And we don't because that way they can perform lawfare.
I had somebody who indicated to me that we may not know that there's grand juries already seated, and if they're in investigation, that they may not be able to talk. And so
Biden certainly talked when he set a grand jury to investigate Donald Trump. He made it public.
He's a freaking vegetable, you know. I mean, it's like,
and I get
well,
it.
was it? Well, Greg, was that a proper lawful grand jury, or was that a fake show de facto corporate jury?
Well, I think the question is, do we have any lawful grand juries today?
There you go.
That's a separate question. But the way they're seated to begin with, I mean, so we need to go back to our constitutional republic and sit a grand jury properly in America and give them the power that they are duly supposed to have to investigate crimes and get these agencies out of investigating crimes, because we don't indict anyone. In maladministration, we don't even have to know that there is maladministration. All we have to do is have the suspicion, and we give it, and we turn over the facts to a grand jury. So it's not a problem that information is made public. It's a problem that we don't do it, because that way we can have an attorney general who is protecting the grand juries through the president to decide who and when people are going to get indicted.
I would argue too that part of that may be somewhat gatekeeping how much information the government has spied on and collected on all of us through all the surveillance stuff. Because if grand juries were a little more common and that evidence was presented to the general public instead of to government-run investigations, I think there would be an awful lot more outrage and just horror by people involved in them.
it's a process.
But if we had proper grand juries and we had proper due process of law based upon the definition, as Bill said earlier, going back in history, due process of law, where people actually had to swear under oath, under penalty of perjury on both sides, a plaintiff and a defendant, or a witness for that matter. If they had to swear under penalty of perjury, we'd have a lot different results in our court system. We wouldn't have 52 million lawsuits filed in this country as we did last year. They would be significantly less. Why? Because attorneys ask for prayers to their complaints. They don't file under penalty of perjury.
Well, and here's the thing, because everybody here knows me. You know, I see this whole administration as lawless. I speak about it all the time. And everybody can agree with that, except when it comes to the president himself, right? I look at that and say, if the whole system's corrupt, how did you get a man to the top level, right? I still question that to this day. I believe it's no different. And I talk about that for hours. But nonetheless, Greg, you're correct. If you go back in history, we all know that, or you should know, that any problem we have in this nation cannot be resolved with some new idea or new law. It has to be resolved with the old ideas and the old laws, because it worked then. And if you go back to the early 1800s specifically, you'll find that your local sheriff had the power to execute the will of the people in enforcing the law, right? The Constitution only gives the people the right through their militias to execute the laws, to enforce the laws against criminals. So when you have something like this, you have a local community, namely in your county, right? But you can even bring it down more local than that. Who's to say we can't file ordinances within our own townships to establish our own local court system? If it's the people's right to uphold the law and make sure that it's enforced and executed, then it's the people's right to hold their own court systems within their local community. And if you have somebody breaking the law, especially in a capital crime situation in your local community, go back to the way they used to do things. You hold them on an accusation. You find your evidence swift and speedily. You bring them to trial among their peers, the people that know them and live among them, right? Not strangers.
Or witness the crime. You had to have people that actually witnessed the crime.
Yeah.
That were
you bring your whole community together in a court situation like that. Call it a grand jury if you must, but people that are willing to testify. And the man who makes the accusation is the man to pull the lever. If you're
Amen.
not willing to do it, don't make the accusation.
Yep.
But that is how you have to support justice, and it has to be done through the people. No federal administration is ever going to bring it as long as the people are not willing to do it.
Well, I would argue
And
that some of
what's
that
happened?
comes down to the attitude that we have nowadays of, well, people in the past were smarter now than people were in the past. They were just dumb, uneducated idiots, you know. And I got into a conversation on this not too long ago when I was talking to someone about Jacquard looms and the machinery involved in that, and it came up like, how did they figure out how to do this? And it's like, no, people were actually smart back then, you know, way smarter than we are now.
That would be Ralph and I. We were studying the looms and how to create fabrics based on several things that we're working on right now, and it's just interesting. Incredible.
Yeah, people used to be smart, and there's such a there's such an attitude anymore of looking back at the past with just an incredible amount of arrogance and not realizing that there's nothing new under the sun. People already figured out a lot of these problems because they had the same problems in the past, and we've forgotten that.
And unfortunately, Ralph, because we acquiesced to their swapping of our constitutional republic rights for these constitutional democracy civil rules and procedures and rights, they call them civil and political rights, the definition, which is clearly different than the definition of the rights that came to me through God and my fundamental common law, which is still the law of the land. The Supreme Court says it, but we have a Supreme Court of the United States, an Article 3 court, and 12 district courts that have jurisdiction over a wide, diverse, set of cases. And they don't have to tell you whether those cases pertain to we the people or whether they just pertain to our servants. So what's happened is, because we haven't learned in civics class, we don't have what our founding fathers and the first 100 years of our republic had, which is people learning their state constitutions and their Bill of Rights and their Declaration of Rights in school. We stripped it from the schools, especially in 1868, when we stripped it from everything, not just the schools, but we stripped it from our law classes. And we only teach civil and criminal rules of procedure. Well, you know what? That's a legislative act. Legislative, that is combining the powers of government with legislative, judicial, and executive all into one branch. And that's what they've done. And that's what the APA, I mean, obviously, that's been talked about a lot on Donna's podcast, especially in the last couple of weeks. And we have a serious problem. We have to educate everybody and understand that we, the people, have all the power in our country. But we are operating with this de jure democracy that they've overlaid, and we've acquiesced to participate in it. So we're in a case in Indiana. And again, we went through it a little bit last week. I certainly wouldn't recommend anybody doing what we are doing. We are doing it for the sake of demonstrating to we, the people, why our court system and why we, the people, have lost our constitutional rights. And
I'm gonna bring this up because I know I'm gonna get dinged on this later, but I think most people would say that was a de facto system, and that overlays the de jure, which is the correct system there. So I'm just gonna add that in because I know that I hear the screaming from behind the screens at me right now. But yeah, and I gotta say, to your point about President Trump and such, we should never worship any person, only God Almighty. I don't care who it is. And we can look at each other and say, okay, they're doing some things right, but I don't agree with everything that anyone's doing at any point in time. We sometimes have a clearer view of what other people are doing than what they do themselves. Okay, we're flawed. But I'm going to hold to that anybody that won in that last election should have called a full stop because of the election crimes, whether they won or lost. That really that it should have been challenged. And it's not by the people who lost, it's by the people who won. And that's top to bottom. And threw it out there and said, fine, I won. Guess what? Now we're going to deal with this thing, and we're going to deal with this boss level and throw it out there, even if it put their own seat in jeopardy by taking the whole thing down because the election was fraudulent.
Make them prove it.
Yep, make them prove it. And I would have loved to have seen President Trump do that. Say, but I'm sure that they're playing, 5D chess here to a certain degree. And I don't know everything. And we don't know everything because there's so much going on behind the scenes. We can make guesses. We can make suppositions, but that's not fact. That's an opinion that we form about what we're seeing. So, but honestly,
at least he's talked about it.
The proper process should have been every single person who was elected. They all know what happened. They all know that people were fraudulently registered and that China was throwing registrations into the system, among other things. The problems with the tabula. I mean, you could sit here. There's a million ways that they were stuffing the ballot boxes and everything else like that. We've got the proof. We have all the proof. So why didn't even one person call a full stop who won the seat?
Probably because that they know that if they do so, it will reveal the corruption and they will not be where they're at any longer.
Well, and not only that, I know that there's a lot of them being blackmailed and threatened. I know of a couple of specific cases where they literally said, this is how it's going to be. You either take the money, all of a sudden they're compromised. And as soon as they do that, that's the easy way. Or the hard way is, I am going to remove somebody from your life that you care for. Oh, guess what? Ralph just said the stream froze again. Sure it did, because I'm telling the truth. The truth is that they're blackmailing people who are in office. How many people went up there that had a good intention, and all of a sudden they got brought down to the basement of the Capitol? I was told flat out that was going to happen, and I'm like, good luck with that. Good luck with that. It'd be amazing if anybody walks out of there and being able to stand straight up for any portion of time. I don't get threatened. And so, but there's so many people that all of a sudden they're holding one of their kids hostage or something like that, or they drug them in a situation and put them in a compromising position. And now their entire lives are ruined. And it's more common than what anybody can even imagine. I can't even imagine being in that kind of servitude to evil. And I know what's happening. Absolutely.
Yep.
The whole system is corrupt.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am going to get to my crew.
Okay. Well, thank you for being on here today. And really, really appreciate it. I want to talk a little bit further while you're on here. Of course, so everybody knows, I'm the chairman of the Constitution Party in the state of Michigan, which is the U.S. Taxpayers Party, suing said Jonathan Brader, who admitted to perjury or perjured himself and admitted to destroying election records without authority in his cross-examination about a week and a half ago. So this is going to be real interesting because the roadblock has been from him and Jocelyn Benson directly. So in changing our name to the Constitution Party, but the Taxpayers Party, the U.S. Taxpayer, is the Constitution Party in Michigan. And I'm going to say right now, my goal is to seat every single open seat in this state with non-establishment, non-industry, political industry hacks, which is what the other parties run. And just if you are an honest person, give me a call. And Bill has been, associated with the Taxpayers Party for a long time. And you're going to find people on here that are like everybody sitting here, committed to the truth, committed to the law, committed to the Constitution, and holding people accountable. We need your help. We absolutely need your help because there's not enough of us that are actually fighting the fight. So last words, Bill.
Noah Webster said, when a citizen gives his suffrage or his vote to a man of known immorality, he abuses his trust or his civic responsibility. He sacrifices not only his own interest, but the interest of his neighbor, and betrays the interest of his country. Watch what you do, because what comes out of your mouth and what comes out of your pen is still part of your virtue.
Going to be an interesting couple months going forward, I think. So, guys, I'm going to do a real quick break here. Karen and Ralph, you can stay on the line. I know Bill has to go, but I need to stand up and move around a little bit. It's rough. It's a rough go to sit in the chair here for more than a couple of hours.
Yeah,
so,
I'm probably going to need to get going too.
Okay, well, there you go. Karen, you can stay on if you want, and then we'll be back in exactly 1 minute. Good morning. Welcome to the second hour of Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg. It's the 23rd day of July 2025. Welcome to our show. And we're right back at it with Greg Martini and Karen the Riveter. So great conversation in the first hour. That was fun.
That was. And a great show yesterday, too. I wanted to compliment you on that because there's a lot of truth in those shows, especially with John and Michael.
Well, and I think one of the things that I've done is I've kind of like pushed all of the influencers to the background because I'm honestly bored out of my mind with audience builders. I am so bored. I'm going to just say it out loud right now that those people that are just in it to build their own audiences, they never reach out or reciprocate to people like such as yourself or the people in your group to help out. All they do is they jump on, they want to talk, they give people, try to get them to come on their shows and such, but they don't do any work. And I don't honestly have a lot of respect for that. And the evidence became real clear to me a couple of months ago when there was a guy that I was helping to, how should we say, ensure his safety and security for the future because he had a couple of assassination attempts on him.
Oh.
And I talked him into coming online because he was so scared. He couldn't even talk a full sentence. I'm like, you need to come online and tell your story because once it's out there, the reason to unalive you becomes a lot less important. And so he ended up coming on and I talked to a bunch of my influencer buddies, and you want to know what their response was to me, which I was about ready to, I couldn't even talk to him after that. I was so disgusted with their lack of integrity and honor and to actually do something to help. You know what their response was? Well, I got to think about my brand. And I was like, screw you and your brand. You put your self-interest over a guy that was willing to walk away from his family who had funded Gain of Function and knew the whole story behind what was happening behind. And I have to protect my brand. Screw them, all of them.
They just interview each other.
What's that?
They just interview each other.
Yeah, your little echo chamber out there, and I'm sure they're going to know who they are, and I really don't care.
I'm just taking a guess.
Yeah, it was such a disgusting display of not only cowardice but self-interest. I can't even believe it. But anybody from your group that wants to come on, I would absolutely say, hey, give me a call and let's talk because we can use this platform for that, the platform here that I've created to get the truth out to people, and we need to do that.
We do need to do that, and we've got an awesome group, and we've got a group in every state. So our group in Michigan and Indiana and Georgia, and obviously out west we've got California. I mean, in every state we have groups that are expanding, learning the law, starting with the fundamentals. And you have to put in the time and effort, because we were never taught in school for 150 years of what our Constitution means, what our rights mean, where how are they taken from us? How can we not be able to indict people that are in Washington that are doing these horrendous things with kids and stealing our money? I mean, we got a $7 trillion budget. How much of that? And my guess is $2 or $3 trillion is seeping out through these crazy NGOs that are not constitutional. They might be legal because they're legal in the democracy of the jurisdiction that they're created, but they're stealing we the people's money. And they have all taken oaths to uphold our Constitution and guarantee each and every state a Republican form of government, yet they continue to do what they're doing because, unfortunately, we the people, who are the trust beneficiaries of the trust, have not done our job for 150 years. They have taken the education away. When you take the education out of the schools and people don't learn what their constitutional rights are, where they come from, why we have them, and start with the fundamentals directly from God and follow through to your Constitution, follow through to your Bill of Rights, you have no way of protecting yourself. And you go into a courtroom today and you hire an attorney, or you represent yourself pro se, and you're using these rules of criminal and civil procedures, which were never meant to be representative and to be put on top of we the people. Those rules and regulations are so that our government can manage our government and set up, criminal and civil rules of procedure in order to protect my rights. But yet, if you really cut through the fundamentals, they've completely annihilated all of our rights. And the only way we're going to get back to knowing our rights, understanding them, and being able to stand and protect those rights, we have to do it through the Constitution peacefully. We have to do it through notices and affidavits, which there is a clear process to educate our public servants, because they've taken an oath to be educated, but yet they unfortunately, they don't know the law either. They were never taught in school. And clearly, if you're an attorney or you're a member of the Bar Association, I think it's clear now, especially with the Senate as well as our Attorney General, sending a notice or a letter to the Bar Association that they're not welcome anymore to interject into our process, because all they've done is perverted the law. And
it's a real problem, because the attorneys, this is another problem that I have with it. You're not supposed to swear in their oath an allegiance to anything, or another oath to supersede the oath to uphold the Constitution and protect the citizens, right? But they swear an oath to the bar. How can they possibly hold public office when they have another oath out there that they serve? The attorneys serve the court. The attorneys serve the standards of the Bar Association, which serves the court. That doesn't serve the people.
Doesn't serve the people.
Turned into a money grab in their civil action jurisdiction crap that's going on out there. The lack of knowledge of actual law associated with, or lawfulness associated with the Constitution, they're totally in the dark of this.
Totally.
And they just go to statutes and case law. It's crazy, But I like talking with you and everybody in your group too, because I understand the notice process and such. But the finer points have been a great education for me, right? But I've been fighting in pro se, which uses case law and statutes and that sort of thing. So and quite honestly, they don't even know how to do that.
They don't.
When you've got them within that system, falsifying documents and lying to the court, which that kind of stuff you see, you can literally get them with their own system.
Well, you can lie to the court if you're in their jurisdiction, because the civil and criminal rules of procedure, which have been created by them, have been put into place so that attorneys could present arguments and where there's no liability for those arguments. So unless we go back to the fundamentals in God's law and people actually have liability for things that they say and do, especially in a court of record, not a court of equity, a court of record, where I, as a defendant or a plaintiff, it doesn't matter, I can put my documents into a record and they are put there, and the judge doesn't have the ability to strike them from the record, which is what they can do in a civil and criminal rules of procedure. And the reason they can do that is because they get the power to judge the law and the fact. They let the jury judge the facts, but they get to judge the law. Well, that's not the way it is. It's supposed to be my peers judge the law and the facts in due process of law. When you're trying to charge someone that's one of we the people with a felony. So
can you describe the difference for everyone about in Article 1 and in Article 3 court? Because I think that you bring that up a lot, and there may be people out there that don't understand the difference and why it's a problem.
Well, in an Article 1 court, Article 3 courts were set up in our Constitution, so they are part of our Constitution with the separation of powers. And it all comes down to separation of powers. Well, in addition, we have in our Constitution the ability for Congress to create their own court system, and that court system is not meant for we the people. It is meant for commerce. It's meant for a whole nother section of the market. And those courts they've created, but yet in order to throw everyone into those courts, which they have merged the executive branch, the judicial branch, and the legislative branch, they've given these administrative courts through, which Michael talked about, I think last week, the Administrative Procedures Act. It gave them the ability to control all three branches of government in the court system, which now you created what they call case law. And case law is effectively the courts making the law, not adjudicating the law. They're actually making the law. And that's where in the civil and criminal rules of procedure that they've created, which the minute they bring up civil and criminal rules of procedure, you know immediately they are not dealing in a constitutional republic Article 3 court. They are dealing with statutes and codes that were created by a legislature, whether it's in the state or whether it's in the federal government, it doesn't matter. But the minute they do that, then those rules and regulations don't apply to me. I didn't take the oath to uphold the Constitution of the United States of America. I am the beneficiary of my trust. I am below my trust, and all of my rights have been withheld from that trust. Well, what they did is they created these Article 1 courts, legislative courts. They actually convinced all of us to join them by acquiescence because we didn't know the law. We weren't taught our civic classes. This didn't happen overnight. This happened over a 50-year period of time.
At least.
At least. I mean, really, probably we're 249 years old. It probably started in 1801. I mean, 1801, they created the first Organic Act, which created, the United States of America Corporation. So it started then, and then in 1871, it really took off. And then again, when they got to fiat currency, it took off even more and allowed them to steal even more out of we the people. So It's these Article 1 courts, which Judge Gorsuch says in both his first book, which was Republic, If You Can Keep It, and that was written in 2019. His second book, which was called Overruled, was written last year, and he made it very clear. You have a 90+% chance to be tried in a, essentially what he calls a fake court. You're in front of a magistrate. You're not going by fundamental common law. You're not going by, oath or affirmation. And you've got a completely separate system of law that's been overlaid on top. And it's not even possible for, out of those 52 million lawsuits that were filed, for 99% of those defendants to even understand what they've done. So are you getting a fair trial? No. Are you standing on your jurisdiction? No. I mean, in our case in Indiana, which was initially filed against my friend, Rob Smijunas, in June 18 of last month, every single notice and affidavit that we filed, and we knew this was going to happen, every single one we filed in that case identified, number one, who we were. We are sui juris. We are not coming here as your made up fictional, vessel. I'm not going to follow your civil and your dead body. I'm not going to follow your civil and criminal rules of procedure. This is the law. And the very first thing we have to decide is, what law are you implementing? Are you implementing the fundamental common law, God's law, against me as a living, breathing human? Or are you implementing this other fake law that you've created in a legislative branch? Well, this judge can't answer that question, first of all. And so we're arguing over jurisdiction first. So we filed all these notices and affidavits. I sent you another copy of that by email. You can feel free to bring it up if you want. She went down in every single notice and affidavit that we filed in her courtroom. She struck from the record. Now, she struck from the record. Now, I knew she was going to do it. So what did we do? We filed a writ of error, which is another way to tell the judge, look, you're making a serious mistake and you have no immunity. We know that because of Trump v. United States. There is no immunity for these unofficial acts that you are taking against someone that is one of we the people. And the minute we did that and we filed it in the form of a motion rather than a straight notice or affidavit, she agreed to have a hearing on that motion. She's like, oh, okay, you filed it as a motion. Well, what she didn't realize was we filed it as a motion, but we also included every single notice and affidavit that she struck from the record up to that point. So now I have it in the record, and I have the ability to go to an appeals court and say, this is what she did. Because she could have acquiesced and said, oh, well, you know what? They weren't filed properly. Well, as a sui juris, I don't have to know the law. I don't have to understand their civil and criminal rules of procedure. That judge is there as my servant to protect me. Whether I'm innocent or guilty is a separate issue. But that judge is hired and put into place. They're supposed to be elected by we the people. Again, she was appointed, so she wasn't elected. So I know right off the bat, she's not a constitutional republic judge. She's a magistrate. She really has no power. But again, in order to expose this system and show the world what's going on, we are going to fight this case. And if we have to, all the way to the Supreme Court of the U.S., but we're going to do it based upon our position as sui juris, not pro se, not under your civil and criminal rules of procedure. I could care less about all your statutes and codes. She struck every single one of those notices and affidavits based upon a statute that's in Indiana code that gives her the ability to control the courtroom and the record. And they do that so they can protect their system. Has nothing to do with innocence or guilt. Has everything to do with protecting their cash cow. It is a money machine, this court system. It
the
is
whole state, the whole government is a money
the whole
laundering
government.
beast.
The whole government. But and just to give people that may not have been here last week a quick summary, my friend and I both drive. We drive in the private. We operate in the private. We don't operate in the public. I have a constitutional right to free travel. He was pulled over because he didn't have a license plate. Well, when the police officer that pulled him over could not identify why he was pulling him over other than the fact that he was driving in the private, and there was no way for him to have jurisdiction over my friend, he proceeded to arrest him. So he arrested him because he refused to give him his name until the officer would identify, what am I being charged with? Tell me my transgression. Tell me, is there a victim? Is there a third party? Well, they proceeded to arrest him. They impounded his vehicle. Then they further, days later, after they put him in prison, now he was out within a short period of time. They told him this was on a Friday afternoon. They told him he was going to be there all weekend. They ended up letting him out after about 8 hours because I think they realized they might have made a mistake. So, but again, that's a separate issue because this officer ended up now he wasn't breaching the peace, never got out of his car, never threatened any officer. There's only 3 ways in this country, in America, in the constitutional republic, that you can be imprisoned. And that is there a warrant out for my arrest? And there was not for my friend. Is there a crime in process where the officer or the sheriff actually sees it with his own eyes? Or thirdly, where you have committed a misdemeanor and you have breached the peace. Well, nearly impossible to enforce that one on my friend because he was sitting on the side of a road and the only people that were there were officers with guns. My friend didn't have a gun on his possession and they weren't being threatened by him. And he clearly wasn't breaching any peace. So if anybody was, it was the officers that had pulled him over. So once they arrested him, then they went through his belongings. They found his ADD medicine. They charged him with an F6 felony for drug possession. In addition, he had a significant amount of cash on him. So he had about $47,000 in cash. Again, we've been driving without a license for several years. So we know this process.
Property
We know
rights
how it
issue
works.
right there.
Oh, well, and they went even a step further. They charged him with resisting arrest. Well, you understand in America, if you are not being charged for a crime, you can resist that arrest of an officer and say, and essentially he did not. That's why I can't wait to see the videos. We've filed a disclosure so that they produce all of the facts because they filed these bogus affidavits. In fact, they filed it with a clerk that sits in the police officers, the sheriff department, who was not present, has no firsthand knowledge, but yet she filed an affidavit at the court with the facts that charge my friend. So now I don't care about the facts of the case because at the end of the day, they don't have jurisdiction. So they'll never be able to get over the jurisdiction. And again, we will take it all the way to the Supreme Court if we have to, because he didn't commit a crime. We are absolutely legal and not violating our Constitution to operate in the private anytime we want. And that means I don't have to have a license on my car or a license plate on my car. If I'm driving in the public roads, I am not infringing and trespassing on anyone else's rights. I'm not speeding. I didn't go through a red light. I didn't do anything that would put someone else at risk. And as long as I didn't, they had no reason to literally even pull me over. So, and I do believe there's more to this case, which we're going to find out once we get our FOIA request from the county. And I think it has a lot more to do with maybe some property that this man owns in their county that he has chosen to let them know that again, property taxes, taxes on your earnings as a living,
Wages.
breathing person, they are not constitutional, and they are an indirect excise tax. Mohr versus United States said it last year in June at the Supreme Court for the first time in really since 1916, since they were originally instituted. And I think it has more to do with the fact that he is a very large landowner, and he's not going to be paying their extortion on their commerce property tax on his estate there. So we think it's directly related. We think the DA thought, you know what, we're going to go after this guy, which, by the way, this happens, millions of times in America, and they target people. It is lawfare. It is lawfare.
They bully people and they're thugs.
They are bullying people, and the only way we're going to get back the truth is go back to the fundamentals, go back to the maxims of law. No one swore under oath or affirmation that he committed a felony. You can't take his liberty away from him unless one of those three things exist.
I have a question real quick.
Great.
Does that then constitute a kidnapping on behalf of the officer or deputy?
Well, what it really constitutes, you realize
because
you
that's
are in
what
prison.
Troy Smocks was arguing. Troy Smocks, when the FBI took him into custody when he was in Texas, that's his $2.5 billion lawsuit he's got against the federal government, and he's doing it pro se. His was that they kidnapped him to go back to DC as a J6er, and he seems to be winning.
Well, and what I can tell you is, again, I don't have an issue with anybody that's in the fight. And we're in the fight to protect our rights, to understand the law, understand what they've done, and understand how to get out of this tyranny, not so much for myself and my friend, but our kids and our great-grandkids. So what it really is it's this. I mean, this is Charles Weissman. Go back in history, find these writers. There's lots of them that wrote about the truth of the law. And what they did was false imprisonment. You cannot imprison someone. And you can't imprison someone for 30 seconds, much less take them, put them in handcuffs, throw them in the back of your car, take their personal possessions, and put them in a county jail. You just can't do it. But they think they can do it to everybody because they think everybody's in their jurisdiction.
Hold the book up again for us, Greg.
Sure.
So you said for a moment a while ago that if those three conditions are not met for an attempted arrest, there's no warrant, there's no witness of a crime, you haven't breached the peace, you have a right to resist. Now, obviously, I don't think that we really want to hurt a deputy who thinks they're doing the right thing, or an officer. I'm not calling for violence in any way, shape, or form. I want to make that
Karen,
clear.
that's a good point. That neither are we, ever. They had guns. He didn't. He was in his vehicle. He doesn't carry a gun. He's never owned a gun. So we don't call for violence either, at all, ever. But I certainly have the right to question an officer. Give me my charges. Tell me why you're arresting me. You have to identify one of those three things. They didn't identify you're breaching the peace. You know what they called him? Oh, you're one of these sovereign citizen guys. He didn't respond to it. I can't wait to see the videos. The good thing is God is setting this up perfectly for us, because this officer called in the entire force. This is a small town. They're not a huge county in Indiana. And they called in the entire force to arrest him. And They think it's funny. Well, they all wear body cams. Let's get those videos. Let's see the truth. And, there is no proper summons. There is no proper warrant. I mean, even to this day, there's not. I mean, they didn't even bother to go back and recreate the records, which is what they tend to do. I mean, our government is rogue. Our government is rogue, and they don't understand the law. They don't understand that we form the government. We've got the right to abolish it. And we are a constitutional republic. That means each and every person in America that was born in one of the 50 states has constitutional rights. Now, they might have been all stripped from us, but the good news is all those laws are null and void on their face. You cannot write a single law, not one, ever in perpetuity, to go against my constitutional rights. And if you have mistakenly got me to sign a 1935 Social Security Act that created my Social Security card that put me into your tyranny, which is what they did, I mean, that's null and void on its face. No one's smart enough to literally be able to put all these pieces together, and you shouldn't have to. Our creator is our founder. He gave us our rights, not man. I don't fear my government. I used to. I used to fear the IRS. I don't fear the IRS. I don't file a 1040. I've never been born or domiciled in the Washington, D.C., or one of the territories of the United States. I am not a citizen of that territory, which is what people claim the 14th Amendment. It made all of us citizens. And you know what? That's partially true. The 13th Amendment freed the slaves. The 14th Amendment literally made us all slaves. It literally wrapped us all in to the 10 square mile jurisdiction of the United States of America Corporation. And then they say the 16th Amendment gave them the right to tax me. I mean, my income. Well, I don't make income. I get reimbursed for the fruits of my labor. That's not income. The only reason it's income is because you created this fictitious, crazy entity that people talk about. And it is true. They created that entity. It's a Sestacute trust. It's sitting in a trust. They created the entity for me, and then they literally put me under, they took away all my rights. They put me into their constitutional trust. So now I am no longer the beneficiary of a trust. I'm a member of the trust, but it's a democracy and not a republic. And once they put me into the trust, they can call me a slave. And then they can charge me whatever they want. They can make me pay taxes on my income. They can make me pay taxes on my property, which again, you cannot charge a direct tax on me at all for anything, unless you're doing it under Article 1, Section 8 of the Constitution, which says it has to be done for war only, and it can only go on the books for 2 years. Then you have to keep redoing it. And the Supreme Court of the United States in Mohr versus United States said very clearly, the United States has never had a direct income tax, maybe with the exception of the Revolutionary War. I mean, that might be the only time where we actually had a direct income tax. And that's arguable because there's some people say that it was never ratified. It's irrelevant. That's literally 225 years ago. So I don't have to deal with that. What I have to deal with is knowing factually that the only tax in America that is legal is an indirect excise tax. An excise tax, by definition, is a privilege. I can choose to accept that privilege, or I cannot accept that privilege. Why would I want to accept the privilege of giving you 30% of my earnings, my income now, because they've converted, me being reimbursed for my time to income because they made me a corporation, and they make it appear as if they were granted this new power. Well, this was in 1913, by the way, right after they created the Federal Reserve Board as well. But then the 1916 Bruce-Shaber case, which says very clearly that the 16th Amendment did not grant any new powers to our federal government. Now, I only say that for a reason, and that is because you have to understand the jurisdiction that these courts operate in. And they believe by acquiescence that if you walk into their courtroom and you either represent yourself as pro se or you represent yourself through an attorney, then you have now accepted their jurisdiction. You are under their jurisdiction, and they get to apply by your acquiescence and you not standing on your constitutional republic rights, which name you sui juris, which names you the king and queen and the beneficiary of the trust, then they can apply those rules and regulations to you in their courtroom. And that's how judges operate. Now, we made it very clear in our notices that we filed in this woman's courtroom that in every one, we told her, we are sui juris, my friend is sui juris, and we went a step further. We said we are not this fictional entity that you think you're dealing with, the dead vessel, the maritime law rules and regulations, which are what civil and criminal rules of procedure are. But again, this is not something we're going to teach everybody in America, but we shouldn't have to. They
That's
should
my
protect
question.
our rights.
I want to pause for just a moment because it is so much fun listening to you, because I've had some introduction to this in the past. And so I'm able to absorb it, but some of it is like, whoa, this is a lot of information. When
And I
you were
apologize for
talking
that.
about, no, that's okay, because the nice thing about videos is they can be slowed down and paused, and anybody who is new to this stuff can watch it as many times as they want to, and it's free. But
Great book.
so the question I have for you, we're talking about the lack of education we've had. We've been talking about that before you came on also. And I know that's part of the problem. But I also believe that another problem that we have is that we've been so toxified and etc. that the brains of the youth of America on up to another couple of generations are struggling to be able to comprehend this type of information. It's intellectual stuff. So when you see people coming into these groups that you were talking about, are these intellectual people who can handle it? Do you see struggling within this community? Does it attract people who are intellectual and can handle it? Does it attract everybody and some just struggle? What is the makeup of the people that you see coming in? Are they able to absorb it? And at what rate do you think it's possible that we will have enough people well versed in this to make a difference in, let's say, the next 5 or 10 years? I know that's a loaded question, but I'm just curious what your perspective is.
And I am more than happy to answer that question. I mean, I am I'm a finance guy by trade. I'm a CFA, Chartered Financial Analyst. I was granted that license after taking these tests. I worked on Wall Street for a long time. I'm not a law guy. I've always wanted to go back to law school because I've dealt with a lot of the courts and I've dealt with cases both as plaintiffs and defendants. We have an extremely diverse group of people that are extremely talented, and it doesn't make any difference which piece of God's puzzle you are. There is something for you to do in our movement, and you will learn. Our notices and affidavits are very simple. We try to keep them to one page. Now, the notices and affidavits that I'm referring to in my case are not one page. And that's because this guy is, they put him in prison. They took his liberty. So they're a little bit longer. They're a little bit more in depth. And they don't correspond 100% to the notices that we do in our group, We the People Assembly. And the reason is because that group's effort is not trying to fight the government the way my friend and I are in this case. What that group is doing is attempting to fight the government, one board of education at a time, one county at a time, one city at a time, one sheriff at a time. And we prepare notices, and we do notices every single day, multiple times a day. And you can go to our website and read our notices. They are short and sweet, and they're educating our servants on what the law is. Every one of our servants, whether they have taken it explicitly or implicitly, it doesn't matter. They have both swore to uphold the Constitution of their state. And that means a Republican form of government. Our federal government has guaranteed to the states a Republican form of government. But what they did when they finally got the tax law passed and they got the country turned upside down again, they were able to have all the money come to Washington and then go back to the states. So from 1871 to your state in Michigan in 1963, they were able to, one state at a time, get every state to acquiesce, to convert your government. And this is why I did what I did last week for Donna. But literally, we can't even do it in some states because some states absolutely refuse to make their original constitutions in digital format. We're trying to do California right now. California did a constitution in 1849. They did another one in 1889. They've only done 2, and then they've done 400 amendments to their constitution. But you know what? I have looked. You can't get the 1849 in today's day and age. I can't get it in electronic format. And when it is presented in electronic format, it's always the 1889 one. Well, why is that? And that's very simple, because they literally changed the entire country from this republic where you had constitutional rights and you were the beneficiary and we were the trust protectors, to a democracy where they basically have total control over you. You are
and the
a
other thing
slave.
that's really significant here, Greg, is that they have rigged this thing so badly that Michigan, the 1963 Constitution, was not lawfully elected.
None of them are. By the way, you
think about
you
this.
can't change it.
We had 1/10 of 1% of the vote for that. That wasn't what was required. So it's an unlawful, illegal constitution that they're basing everything on, which is unfortunate. You got to go back to the 1908 Constitution, and to even have a semi-serious discussion, and some of that was an alteration. So,
but here's the problem that they have with every single one of these. You can't just modify the entire Constitution. You can't do it, period. You just can't do it. I mean, those constitutions, certainly you can file amendments to them. But in order to implement what they implemented, they had to redo the entire thing. And then they had to go to Black Law's dictionary and they had to change the definitions of words. And that's what they've done. So I have Black Law's, 1 and 2 and 4 and 5 and 9 and 11, because I literally have to go through and track the words through history so that we can identify what our founding fathers meant. And then I have to go back to Charles Weisman and Story and other historians who wrote about the law. And I have to find out, I have to read the Federalist Papers and the Anti-Federalist Papers. So to go back to your question, Karen, on our group, it is the most rounded and well-diverse group of people I've ever met in my life. And that's after working on Wall Street for 35 years. I mean, we have some of the most talented people that can modify and edit. And every single notice and affidavit we do, every single one is scrutinized, is adjusted, is modified, is prayed over before we release it. And then it's an assembly of we the people. It's our God-given right to assemble. And some people will say you're practicing law. Well, you know what? Where in the Constitution, and this is the question we asked repeatedly, where in the Constitution, does it say that only lawyers can practice the law? It doesn't say it. So, we didn't have the American Bar Association running this country until 100 years after our existence. They slowly began to take over absolute control of our country.
And they don't have a license to practice law. It's a private membership association.
It is a PMA.
So it is truly, the whole thing is a fraud upon the people of the states and of America in general. It's a fraud.
But
And
and they can get away with that fraud because they changed the definition of license. So when you look at what a licensed bar member is, I mean, it has nothing to do with a constitutional republic. But unless we learn and go back in history and teach our kids, I mean, and Donna, I'm on your program because of Summer Cook. I mean, when I saw Summer Cook and you, and she was showing you her books, and she's got more out now, and it's incredible because it's teaching our children what our state's constitutions and what our Bill of Rights is and who they came from, who gave us our rights. Everybody thinks government controls us. They don't control us. We are a Christian nation built on God's word, and God controls us, and he gets all the glory. But he also gave us a constitutional republic. And I hear Bill say this repeatedly on your show. I mean, it's a republic because Ben Franklin said it, if we can keep it. Well, we've lost it. But you know, the beauty is it's pretty simple to get back. I live in the republic. And this is the problem with almost every single state superior court. I live in the republic, not the democracy. I'm allowed to go in and out of the democracy anytime I want because my tax dollars paid for it all. So I am a lawful taxpayer. But what they don't understand is when I'm living in the republic, if they want to come and charge me with a felony, just like my friend Rob Smijunas, if they're going to charge him with a felony, they darn well better do it under a court of record and he gets due process of law. Well, due process of law from Black Law's 4th to Black Law's 5th amazingly eliminated 4 of the variables. And a lot of those variables are related to the Bar Association eliminating affidavits and maxims of law from their law. So they don't operate by constitutional republic law. But if I'm sui juris and I'm one of we the people, and I heard John say this on your show the other day, can you get remedy as pro se? Because attorneys are up here. They've got a direct relationship with the judges. And the judges, it's a club. It's a PMA. It's a club.
It's a PMA.
That's
all it is a PMA. And you want to watch them turn red and almost like blow a gourd. I had this discussion with them. I'm like, don't try to pull rank on me because you're asserting that you're a bar attorney. I'm like, we already know that you're just a private membership association that thinks that you can subvert the people.
Well, there is nothing.
Well, I just want to say that, but it's true.
There is nothing ambiguous about the notices and affidavits we complete and file. Nothing ambiguous. We are sui juris. We identify ourselves as one of we the people. We identify in the Constitution where it comes from, and then we identify that it's been upheld at the Supreme Court of the United States. And most importantly, we identify it through maxims of law that have been around for thousands of years. This isn't new. America didn't create these. These are maxims of law that are incorporated into our constitutional republic by our founding fathers. And they incorporated them for a reason. And they can't bring a suit against me if they don't follow these rules. These are constitutional republic rules. This is the law of the land. Unfortunately, every attorney will tell you, oh, we don't go by that law anymore. Well, you know what? The Supreme Court says we do. I mean, you can look at SEC versus Jakarski. You can look at, the Mohr's case. You can look at all these cases. But they went away from it for 100 years. But now they're bringing it back. And why are they bringing it back? Because they get tens of thousands of notices from Dave Jose, who is the founder of this group, Jaron Jackson, and a whole group of other people that write notices and affidavits. And even in my case in Indiana, which is an individual case, but with my friend Rob Smijunas, even in that case, every single notice that we filed, an affidavit we filed in that courtroom, in that case, in that bogus court, by the way, it's not a true court, but she calls herself a judge. Yeah, it's their made up Article 1 court. But every single notice that we have filed, we sent not just to her. but we sent it to her, to the sheriff, all the way up to Pam Bondi and Judge Gorsuch. So they all know from June 18th on, every single one of these notices and affidavits are being widely dispersed. I don't have to follow their crazy rules of procedure. But yet this judge literally has stricken from the record every single thing we filed and requested of that court. Pretty simple, basic stuff. Show me where you get jurisdiction over me. Show me the information that you have based on how you receive that information, most importantly, because it was false imprisonment from the beginning. It was false imprisonment the minute they pulled him over and walked up to him, and the officer said, "Oh, you must be one of these sovereign citizens."
Which
You know
they're
what?
celebrating right now, so it's sort of like
They're celebrating, but the beauty
they
is
pull this out of their back pocket when they wanna harass a segment of the population.
we will flip. This case will flip real fast, and it's going to flip in our time when we choose to flip it. And whether this judge decides to dismiss this case, which is probably my guess, we have a hearing on August the 11th. I invite everybody to come watch it. Sit in her courtroom and watch the hearing, because that's over
we have
jurisdiction.
2 hearings. We have 2 hearings on August 11th. What a great day.
Yeah, I've got
It is a
another one
great
I've
day.
got to show up for, and that's the one that I was at Jonathan Brader's cross-examination where he perjured himself and admitted to destroying evidence without authority. So that's August 11th. I'm going to be there for that one too, because I just honestly think that this is important for us to actually show up and witness these things in person. So,
But Donna, the problem is you can perjure yourself in their courtroom. You can perjure yourself, and there's no real penalty for it unless they choose to go after you.
I think
They
that
have
this
to
has got some
choose.
traction behind it, though. It's like there's
And I'm
there's a lot
happy to
of
hear that.
fighting. There's a lot of us fighting in different areas. I have a lot of different
I
people
agree.
on here who have different opinions that this is the only way that it's going to work. But realistically, when you've got all of us fighting and we're coming at the problem even from different directions, I think that it's really effective that way. And I'm just happy that everybody's willing to step forward and do what God's put on their heart. Because when you're in a war, you don't use just one form of defense, you use multiples. And I think that makes a pretty bomb-proof way to go after things that are unjust and that are illegal, which is what we have. Well, this is fantastic. I love it. I'm watching my numbers on Instagram go up here today, which is kind of interesting. I just started going on Instagram too to see if I can get that thing figured out. And so
That's great.
yeah, it's really interesting. I think we're on 13 besides Brandenburg News Network. We kind of keep track of things. And on Brandenburg News Network alone, we have logged well over 100 continuous watch years of video. That's a lot of video.
That's a lot of video.
And then the numbers aren't necessarily indicative of what's going on because their little algorithms are suppressing. That's part of the suppression and censorship. But we're on 13 different venues where we're getting it out. So
Good for you.
Plus 2 Tor nodes. So it's like they keep trying to play whack-a-mole with us, and they had that Sentry.io
I saw that earlier.
That was pretty funny. They've got that on here. So I'm pretty sure that, all of the tech nerds here are going to jump on that one and have this thing tracked down to the computer and or the system of where this is, the operators and such, because we've done that before, which is really funny. And, things don't go good when you have good information. But anyway.
Well, they are absolutely trying to suppress me and to silence me.
All
they
of
can
us.
only do it. Yeah, all of us.
Doing it to all of us.
And they're going to continue. They're going to continue. I mean, their only way is control.
You just have to refuse to quit, and you've got to continue to go on. And when you are knocked down or somebody does something, get up, keep walking, keep going.
Absolutely.
Have a little faith here. Have some faith in God, then it's going to be okay.
If you put your faith in the right place, everything is going to be okay.
That's right. So anyhow, well, let's go to prayer, and then we'll do some last words here, and then we're going to go about our day. Of course, you know, I injured my back slightly. I felt something tear. I was out. Of course, horse people we're a bunch of savages, right? So I tore
Good
something.
luck. It's terrible.
I tore something in my back. I mean, I felt it tear too. So for the last week here, I'm a poster child why every cowboy movie, when you watch them walk, they're kind of like, oh, that's
Wait a minute.
why.
For the last week, and you haven't even had it looked at yet?
I don't do that. Are you kidding me? I home birthed my kids. You know, I homeschooled my kids. I'm not much of a doctor person. The only reason why I would actually go in is if I was probably last step to like exiting the world, and I'd only do it if one of my kids asked me to do it or somebody else that actually gave a rip. I just don't do the doctor thing. Okay.
I don't either. So I understand. You don't even have to explain. I used to. Don't do it anymore.
Well, hey, you remember I was diagnosed with incurable cancer.
Yep.
And which is kind of funny to me. Went 4 times to the cancer doctor and basically said, this is absolute nonsense. I'm like, they're not interested. What I saw for me, they're not interested in curing us at all. They're interested in getting you on the hamster wheel, extracting as much money as they can from every source. So I just never went back. I'm like, I'll figure this thing out by myself. And guess what? I did, which is fun.
Good for you.
All kinds of ways of getting rid of cancer. They just don't want to.
We're the beneficiaries for it. So that's good.
It's really kind of funny when you walk through this life completely unafraid and you follow God. He will make a way when there seems to be no way. Even cancer, it's not something to be, in my opinion, it's not something to be afraid of. And the quicker you deal with the problem and you make some lifestyle changes and you try things that they say are bad for you when they actually work to heal you and such, and not be afraid of just, jump in the Jordan. You've heard me say that a lot of times.
Mm-hmm.
When it looks like certain death, like those that carry the ark into the Jordan, guess what? Jump in the Jordan and watch God stop the waters in its tracks. It's amazing. Everything we do should be based. If you don't have that figured out, if people don't have that figured out, you're going to lose, and you're going to lose a lot. When you step into walking with God and you walk with God on this earth, what ends up happening is things might not always go the way that you want them to go. There's going to be some tough things, but nothing worthwhile happens that isn't a little difficult when we take that path of, oh, this is for your safety. No, it's not. It's to put you in a pig pen to slaughter you, right?
It is.
Or this is going to give you lots of time. It's going to make you feel good. You're going to have a lot of playtime. Guess what? You just been put in a pig pen right there. Anything worthwhile doing is going to have some difficult steps. That's how we grow. That's how we get sharpened. That's how we become more informed and can use those things in order to do really good works. You don't get to do good works by being a freaking couch potato that takes like orders from everybody out there. That's not how it works. You've got to step forward in faith, and then the miracles happen. It doesn't come the other way around. You have to move forward. And then it's like, okay, this is going to be good. And it's going to be really interesting. Nothing that is out there should we be afraid of. Nothing.
And give praise and glory to God.
It's all God.
I would not be able to do this without him opening my eyes massively.
It's all glory to God. I mean, there's not one thing that any of us does that is correct without him.
Without his guidance.
We were born in a failed state. So when you see anybody doing anything right, pretty extra sure you're seeing God operational in that situation.
You're right.
Yeah. So let's say a prayer and then we'll go to last words. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for Greg and all the wonderful people he's standing with. I know that they serve you and that they want to do what's right here in your world. It's your sandbox. You made it. You make the rules, and you're teaching us through your loving ways how to be better, how to be more like you, because you're good all the time. You're not like us. I'm kind of glad, and I wouldn't want your job because it looks like a tough job, because we look around us and we see people and ourselves and our families and go, man, you should have torched us a long time ago. But you know what? We thank you for being a helper to us, a guide, our savior, our provider. You stand in front of us. You lead us out of terrible things that most of the time are our own fault. We make our own problems. Not all of them. Some of them get thrown at us. And I thank you that you've given us both things that are comfortable and good and those things that are difficult, because you've taught us to grow. And the fact that you have chastened those you love in order to help us to grow and be more helpful to the people around us that we love, to hold to a standard, to be your presence here in the physical world, body of Christ. We're thankful for everything you've done for us, and we lay it all at your feet. It has nothing to do with us. It's all you, and we're grateful. We're so grateful. We want to be a friend to you. Today, we want to be your best friends that will step forward no matter what you ask us to do, regardless of the consequences, no matter how it turns out. It's not our business. We just have to do what you ask us to do, and you worry about the end, and that's good enough. Thank you for everything. We love you. In the name of Jesus Christ, we pray. Amen.
Amen.
There you go. So let's take a few minutes here. And I was able to get up and move around a little bit and try to stretch this tear in my back out that crazy horse people do constantly. You know, we do that. We do that, you know. Take a kick from a half-ton animal, not a problem, you know. So anyhow.
Better you than me.
Yeah,
That's not for me.
Horse people are nuts. Okay, that's the absolute truth. So real horse people. Okay, there's a difference there. So anyhow, Karen, you want to take a few minutes and talk about what's on your mind here, and then we're gonna do the normal Brandenburg for governor not conceding to their nonsense little ending.
Well, I appreciate that everybody's got a role to play. I've been saying that for the last few years, and we can see there's different approaches to resolving these problems that we have. They've been coming at us for a long, long time. We didn't know about it, and as we learn about it, it takes time to process that information, and then it takes time to address it. I think that President Trump, whether he's a real man now or he's an entity, he is that which is helping clear the way for us and helping us do things that we can't do. And the rest of us has got to figure out what our role is, what we can do. And that, I think that's frustrating for a lot of people because they feel helpless. They feel apathetic because they don't know. They don't see an end game. And when you two come on and you're talking about the efforts that you're making and that you do see an end game result to that, you know, Donna, I think your cases are going to come through when the time is right. And Greg,
I'm winning. There's no two ways about it. I'm winning.
Donna's she's got guests every week, several guests on a weekly basis lately that have been talking about their battles and updating the status of those things. I think it's really cool to see that there is progress being made. I have days where I feel like swinging, and I have days where I'm like, I just want to stay home with my plants and just ignore the rest of the world. And lately I haven't spent a whole lot of time on social media because it can't be my priority, and I lose following. I only have a very little following as it is, according to Telegram. I don't know if those numbers are true or not either, but I just, I'm typically just sharing more information and giving a lot of commentary on it because so much of it just seems like a waste of my time compared to other things right now. But I don't want to discourage anybody. I think keeping track of what's going on is important as long as we keep an emotional distance from it.
Well, your insight and your ability to summarize what's been said is just amazing. I always love reading what you write and your input and things. I mean, and besides that, you're a true friend. I love you to pieces, and Karen and I are friends and such. But the difference between Karen and I as friends, this is how friends go. You ever have a really good friend that you know really well, right? And Karen is this describes our personalities. Okay, Karen is a dog person. All right, we both have chickens too, but she's a dog person. Where I am a horse person. A dog person is going to be kind of if there's a problem, they're going to go and sit by the person and give them kisses, lick the wounds, that sort of thing. Where a horse person is going to go in there and say, "Nope, this is wrong," and kick the door down until there's nothing standing. And it's really funny. We laugh about it because we're great friends. I mean, Karen is one of the greatest friends of my entire life. I'm going to tell you that right now. I have so much love and respect for her, and I wish you guys could know her the way that I do. Tremendous, tremendous human being. But it's funny how we are all so different, but we bring our gifts to the table at different times, and that's the way that God has created us. But anyhow, I love you, Karen. You're amazing.
Love you too.
Thank you. Greg.
I got a coughing spell, so
yeah,
he's
coughing. You got to get some Fisherman Friends mints, those lozenges. That's you can eat those like Tic Tacs.
You're right. I eat them like crazy.
Yeah, those are great.
I hate
all
them.
I will
I
say
hate them.
is put your faith in God, read your state Bill of Rights, learn your Constitution, and stand on it. That's the most important. God gave us our rights. And when you read the state Bill of Rights, you will begin to see it.
Yeah, there you go. I've been doing a lot of writing on staying faithful and on godly principles. I've been writing a lot of Bible studies and compiling perspectives. And I decided, God put it in my heart to put it into more of a parable form. And just so you guys know, I'm not a writer. Okay, there's certain things that every one of us do well. Some of us are gifted in it. Some of us have to really work at it. And it's been a process. I mean, my whole life is been a work in progress, like everybody else's. It's just that it's same thing with Greg and Karen. We've just decided to step forward because we're sick of their nonsense. I go into horse mode and want to kick the doors off the hinges and be done with it, and such. And I think that we have to realize we're in uncharted waters right now as we go forward with this. There is a lot going on behind the scenes. My travels back and forth to DC, been to Mar-a-Lago a few times, meeting people who are behind the scenes. Lansing's a friggin' ghost town. Okay, I'm sorry, it just is. Truth sucks, but it's the way it is. And I have to see these things and be able to tell you with on the ground reports that things aren't as they appear, not even close. And so have a little faith, because I do think that even though we're seeing things that might not be exactly as they're supposed to be, look at how the wind blows. The Bible talks about this. And even in the end times, we're not going to know the time or the season. God laid this out there for us. Or he didn't say we weren't going to know the time, but we would know the season. You're going to be able to look at the way the wind blows a little bit. You're going to be able to see the signs that are coming. But that doesn't mean that God's going to come right out and say, okay, 2:00 tomorrow, the world ends. And so just so you know, this is the way things are going. And I'm pretty sure that that's what's happening behind the scenes with the good guys. I know a lot of them. I'm seeing a few names that popped up right now that I shall not necessarily say. Instagram, I'm seeing one very good friend that just popped up, and you get it figured out. Look at the signs a little bit. But honestly, there's so much good going on. I had, as I said before, my cousin committed suicide a couple of days ago. One of my cousins did. And don't get to the point of despair when you're seeing how things are going. You're never alone. I put my phone number out there if you need to talk to somebody. And I do pick up my phone. If you text first, it's usually best, because if I'm sitting here talking like this, I won't be able to pick up right at that moment, but I will return it. tonight I have another show going on, and this is with Coach Dave and Judah Ayers, who is a very good friend of mine. And we're going to be talking about some very serious subjects, some of the things of secret societies, which they took out JFK for, amongst other things, and what's happening in the state of Michigan behind the scenes. The oligarch families are all part of it. And these are uncomfortable circumstances and things to talk about, especially when people have become brainwashed by criminal organizations such as political parties who are taking foreign money to rig the election. They're part of it. And if people don't see that and say, well, guess what? I guess I better get off these parties that have taken foreign money and stop being complicit in their crimes, you're not going to change it. Don't ever think that you have enough power in these systems to overcome them. You only get the power when you walk away, when you get out of these systems, such as what Greg was talking about. You know,
but you're not. I would
be willing to walk away from some of this stuff and fight the real fight, and the potential of, taking them down. It's got to happen. But anyhow, we're going to be talking about this. We'll be talking about things like homeschooling, the secret societies. So if you want to join us, I'll post on my X account, which is, there's a bunch of imposters out there. It's so funny. It's at Brandenburg, the number 4MI. That's the what you have to look for. Don't look for Donna Brandenburg, because there's about, I don't even know how many of them that are out there that are imposters that are trying to pose as me and taking the attention or giving you bad advice. Okay, that's the way it is. So same thing on Facebook, same thing on X, same thing on Telegram. They're just beware. It's at Brandenburg 4MI. In my Telegram account, which is where I do the majority of my posting, I like that. I like that platform better than any other ones because I can write as much as I want, and they do a lot less censorship. Do they censor? Yes. Does X censor? Absolutely. Absolutely. They're all censoring. TikTok, censor? Absolutely. Absolutely. But if you get to the real accounts, you're going to see the majority of it. So anyhow, join us tonight on Secret Societies. And Jude is going to be bringing the receipts because he's got a $5 million lawsuit going on against the DeVosses, Amway, and he calls it Chinaway because it's true. It was the breaking into China, the Keiretsu model, which I've talked about with Vicki Davis. Keiretsu is a supply line monopoly. And guess what? In their little criminal faces. There's a horse kick for you. So with that said, if you're feeling depressed about it, don't be. Things are going in a great direction. And you just got to be a little patient, have a little faith, and it's going to be okay. So with that said, here we go, boys and girls. We go to wrong hand. Ding, 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 ding. Go to BrandenburgForGovernor.com because I'm the best non-conceder who's ever not conceded in the history of the United States of America. And I'd like to have a discussion with the rightful president of the United States, President Donald J. Trump, in cowboy boots. I wear them better. You get that figured out. And then we go on and we talk about real stuff out there that matters. But at any rate, we're doing good as a country right now. It may not seem like it, but we're learning. We're growing up. We're learning to have focus on each other and serving God here. If we don't have that heart of a servant, it's an automatic disqualification for any office, for any activity right there, and they should be disqualified. It's based on money. Disqualify them immediately. Nobody here gets paid. This is all free. I set this up. I fund it. I pay for the connections, the servers, the maintenance, setting things up, scheduling, and bringing people in. And no one here gets paid. They show up because they love this country, they love God, and they love you. So if you think you're alone, you're not. There's years of this going on at this point in time, and lots of us fighting. It's not a great option. And with that said, oh, look at if they froze it up again, that's fantastic. Just keep it up, guys. We're going to keep coming back. We just don't care. We're not going to stop. Okay. It's the way it is. So suck it up, move on, and crawl back to your little slimy holes of despair if you're going to be a criminal. So with that said, everybody, God bless you all. God bless all those whom you love. And God bless America. Make it a great day. You have a choice every day, every minute of your day. Don't let them take your joy away. And stand there, stand strong, stand tough, and remember, nothing good ever comes out of an easy path. It's always a harder path that makes it worthwhile. So we'll see you tomorrow. I have let's see, I've got 2 people on tomorrow. I'll have to post it because I don't remember right now. I'm not looking at the schedule, but I've got a new guy that's coming on tomorrow. And I think Sheriff Max is going to be on, and another guy that's talking about independent banking, which is kind of interesting. I don't really know much. I've never talked to him personally, but I was like, okay, he's associated with some other people I know. Good. Interesting patriots. We'll give him a shot at this. So we'll see what happens. Anyhow, have a fantastic day. I hope to see you at 9:00 tonight with our special edition. And then tomorrow we'll be back on, and Friday too. So I've gotten enough of a break here and gotten some things in order to continue to go forward. So we'll be seeing you soon. Stay on the line, guys.